Am I audible? Visible?
Yes, sir.
So we are in the class number 2 of unit 3, that is grain-based fermentation process. Grain-based fermentation process. Previous class we discussed about how does grain fermented occur. In case of milk, we are seeing that the milk fermentation needs special starter culture. Yes or no? Every milk fermented products need special starter culture. But in grainless fermentation, the two we have already discussed, that is the idli and the dosa, the popular breakfast, does not need any kind of starter culture. It fermented based on indigenous microbes, that means natural microbes present inside the dal, present inside the rice. Clear? So, grain-based fermentation, in previous class we discussed the fermentation process of idli and dosa. In case of idli and dosa, do not need any kind of special starter culture. Indigenous microbes is enough to ferment and make the tastier fermented product. Clear? But today's section, another grain-based product, it is bread. It is bread. So formation of bread needs starter culture. Formation of bread or manufacturing of bread need starter culture, that is the yeast, not wild type lab grown yeast or special starter culture yeast. So with that note, we start bread manufacturing process. Previous day we discussed idli dosa manufacturing process. Very simple one. But bread manufacturing process have some complexity. So today's class is about bread manufacturing process. First of all, bread is manufactured from the basic raw material, that is wheat grain. Yes or no? Wheat flour. After fermentation, it produces bread, right? So bread fermentation process or bread manufacturing process has some distinct feature. Bread manufacturing process is different from other manufacturing process. Is different. In what aspect it is different? Different, number one, bread and the raw material, that is the wheat flour in case of raw material, and the final product. Just look at that, the final products and raw material. It is the final product. Which one is more perishable? Which one is more perishable? Perishable means highly nutritious and become high rate of spoilage chance. Bread is highly perishable, whereas raw material is less perishable. Yes or no? Online students, bread is more perishable than the raw materials here. But in other scenario, other manufacturing process, the raw materials is less perishable. Sorry, more perishable, and the fermented food is less perishable. That's why fermented food in other case is used for preservation. But here in that case, do not use for the preservation. Bread manufacturing is do not use for the preservation step. But in case of other manufacturing step, milk-based fermentation, previous class idli dosa manufacturing is all for to increase the shelf life of the product. Yes or no? But bread manufacturing Do not increase the shelf life because bread manufacturing itself, bread is the more perishable than the raw materials. So what is the purpose of making bread? So why we are making bread? High nutrition values. Nutritional value to one case, but main case is wheat flour cannot consume directly. Wheat flour cannot be consumed directly, right? That is why we have to make some functional product out from the wheat flour, and that is the bread. Other than that, the wheat flour has no use. Correct or not? Correct or not? So bread manufacturing is different from other manufacturing because it does not increase the shelf life of the product like other manufacturing process increase the shelf life of the product, but it does not increase the shelf life of the product because here bread is more perishable than wheat flour. The final outcome product after fermented product bread is more perishable than raw materials. Yes or no? But milk-based product, that is cheese. Milk is highly perishable, easier to spoil it, but cheese, the outcome product after fermented product, cheese has long shelf life. But in that scenario, it is opposite. So why does bread is produced? Bread is produced to make functional product from wheat grain. Otherwise, wheat grain has no role. So bread is actually made because it has functional and consumable form. Consumable form. Correct? Bread can be consumed, but wheat grain cannot. That is why you have to make some functional product out of wheat grain. The initial part is clear. So now we enter into the manufacturing steps, bread manufacturing steps, and started with raw materials. The basic raw material is wheat grain, wheat flour, that is very clear, and other raw material also used here. So next, raw materials for bread manufacturing process. First one is very simple, wheat flour, common starting material. Wheat flour, the scientific name of wheat is Triticum aestivum. So here my question, why wheat is generally used? Not other like other grain like oats, rye, bran, etc. Why wheat is used generally for making bread? Anyone? Other grains are also available, na? Other grains also available, like other cereals like in the market. There are other cereal like barley, oat, corn, millet, etc. So various other cereals also available in the market, but why wheat is selected to make the bread? Anyone guess?
First of all, because wheat has no other nutritional values.
Hmm. Nutritional value পাবে barley, oats, corn, millets, they also have good nutritional value.
তো কিন্তু wheat তো নেই মানে wheat তো বানানো
না wheaterও nutritional value আছে, but wheat cannot be consumed directly. That is why you have to make the consumable form. That is the bread. My question is, if we use the starting material barley or oats, etc. flour, can the bread is made?
taste. Taste.
Taste also different. That's clear. But it is consumable, or it make the that shape of the bread that produced from the wheat. If answer is no, so why? If answer is no, then why? Why we cannot use oat flour, barley flour, millet flour for making the bread? The main property lies in the gluten. The main property lies in gluten. The wheat contains good amount of gluten. What is gluten? Gluten is a protein, and that makes the flexibility of the product after fermentation and give the good texture of the bread. We can use for making the bread barley, oat, flour, but the texture is not that available that present in wheat flour. Clear? So why cannot use barley, oat, corn, millet, etc.? Because wheat is the preferable. Wheat flour is preferable because of good amount of gluten present. Gluten present. And gluten is actually the protein mixture, protein complex. It gives bread structure and elasticity. And also necessary gluten for leavening process. So without gluten or less amount of gluten, the leavening process does not complete. Leavening means the volume increase. The carbon dioxide is leaved after the reaction, and carbon dioxide actually increase the volume. That's called leavening process. The leavening process could not complete if the gluten is less or no amount, less amount is present. As wheat contain good source of good amount of gluten, that's why it gives gluten gives the characteristics bread structure, characteristics elasticity, and the good for also leavening process. So volume also rises. Clear? So from here question can be framed: why wheat is preferable for making the bread, not other grain? Because other grain contain less amount of gluten, and less amount of gluten, the actual bread structure texture could not come. Question answer clear?
Yes, sir.
Ingredients number 2: water and salt. For manufacturing, we need. Third, optional ingredients. Optional ingredients. Number one, sugar. So must have requirement flour, water, salt, and optionally we can add for more texture, more flavor, sugar. Small quantity of sugar, usually sucrose or glucose, is added to make the bun sweet, more sweet, and also allow initial amount of sugar as the wheat flour contains starch, polysaccharide initially. So small quantity of addition of sucrose or glucose actually increase the yeast activity because yeast need glucose, yeast need carbohydrate for their growth. So initial amount of monosaccharide or disaccharide activate the yeast good. Otherwise, also the wheat flour contain carbohydrate, but carbohydrate remains in polysaccharide form, hard to digest, and it needs time for yeast activation. So initial amount of glucose, initial amount of sucrose inside the bread dough, it actually activates the yeast. Well, so optional. Number two, enzymes. Enzymes also added alpha amylase as well as beta amylase can be added into the dough because the reason is same. For the yeast activation, yeast growth needs carbohydrate, initial burst of carbohydrate, and the carbohydrate remains in the wheat flour. Wheat flour is in the polysaccharide form. So polysaccharide form to convert into the simple form needs some enzyme help. And for the if we add outside from the amylase and alpha amylase, beta amylase source, so yeast activation occur quickly. That is the main purpose of addition of the enzymes to activate the yeast quickly. To activate the yeast quickly, correct. Starter culture or yeast to activate. Fat also have been added. Why fat is added inside the dough? Because fat has shortening property. Shortening property. What is shortening property? Shortening property means fat becomes solid at room temperature. During room temperature. So baking time, fat is liquid because baking time the temperature is rising above 100 degrees centigrade, 200 degrees centigrade. That is the temperature of baking. So that time fat is liquid, but when it incubate into the room temperature, it becomes solid. So by that, the proper texture is provided. The bread proper structure and holding property is provided by the fat because it forms solid at the room temperature. So all molecules are being holded by the fat. So fat can be added because of the good property, shortening property. So it gives crumble texture, crumble and crisp texture. থাকে কি থাকে না? Marketized bread is a crumble crusty. How does it form? Because fat is added. Fat is added during the dough making, and the fat has this property, shortening property. That's why it gives the bread crumble crisp texture. Number four, vitamin. Nowadays, some company added some vitamin inside the dough. Basically, B vitamin. Add B vitamin like riboflavin, thiamine, niacin, etc. As most of the people are vitamin B vitamin deficit, that's why vitamins can be added. B group of vitamins. Number five, yeast nutrient. Another agent for yeast activation. For yeast activation, the yeast nutrient added, and the yeast nutrients are ammonium sulfate, ammonium phosphate, etc. So why does two salts are added inside the medium, inside the dough? Because yeast need carbohydrate but also need some micro elements for their growth. Yes or no? They need phosphorus, they need sulfur, they need other nitrogen. So from that salt, sulfur is the source, ammonium phosphate, phosphorus is the source. So sulfate, phosphorus, if we add it inside the dough, so yeast are better activated. So that's called yeast nutrient. So during the bread making, to initiate the yeast quickly activate, we need to add either sugar, also enzymes we can add, and absolutely needed yeast nutrient because this gives the micro element sulfur, phosphorus, etc. source. So raw materials under optional ingredients. Clear or no? Online students, till now it is clear.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Number four, raw materials. It is not optional, it is needed. Absolutely needed. Needed. Number four, emulsifier. Emulsifying agent should be added. And good example of emulsifying agents, monoglycerides, monoglycerides, triglycerides. Now the question is, what is emulsifying agent? What is emulsifying agent? Anyone? What is emulsifying agent and what is the role of emulsifying agent here?
স্টার্টিং কাজকে অ্যাক্টিভ করা
অ্যাক্টিভ করা হয়ে গেছে কাজ। অ্যাক্টিভ করার জন্য আমরা সুগার সোর্স দিতে পারি, এনজাইম সোর্স দিতে পারি, or we can add yeast nutrient. But it is it is for the different purpose to proper make the bread proper texture, flavor, etc. So what is the actual function of emulsifying agent? What is emulsifying agent? Do you know anyone? Emulsifying agent. All of you hear the term emulsifying agent, emulsifier. But what is the role of emulsifier? What is emulsifier agent? Can you describe anyone? No? Emulsifier agent or emulsifying agent contain both hydrophilic group and hydrophobic group. Look into the matter great, in broadly. Just take an example. In a bucket, you put water and oil. Did it ever mixed? Oil and water is mixed inside the bucket? No, because oil creates a separate phase, water creates separate phase because water is hydrophilic, water and oil is hydrophobic. So they created both different phases. Yes or no? But when you add this agent, emulsifying agent into this bucket, this oil and water, which is other than in the scenario, they are immiscible. Immiscible means do not mix. But when you add that, oil and water is well mixed. Because this emulsifying agent can bind with the oil because it has hydrophobic group. It can bind with the water because it has also hydrophilic group. So they created the bonding in between oil and water and make the mixture equal well. So that is why emulsifier is a good property of mixing of two substances which is normally immiscible otherwise. The two substance oil and water here it is immiscible, that means does not mixed because of different property. But when you add into the mixture emulsifying agents, the oil and water now mixed together. So after the addition, what happened? The oil water is mixed properly, could not create any phase. Clear? So here in the case in the bread manufacturing, we used water, we used fat, yes or no? So both have oil have the hydrophobic property and it is water should add it for the kneading. So it has a hydrophilic property. So how does it will get mixed? It should be mixed during the kneading process and it is done by using emulsifying agent. And the good emulsifying agents are monoglycerides and salicylate. So without emulsifying agents, what happened into the bread texture? The bread texture could not volumize, and water and oil separately present inside the dough. Yes or no?
Yes.
So emulsifying agents is absolutely needed for proper texturing of the bread. Clear? Point clear, online students. What is
Yes,
emulsifying
sir.
agents? Point clear. So emulsifying agents function. Emulsifying agent able to keep immiscible liquids from separating. From separating. So without emulsifying agent, without emulsifying agent, the bread become dry, low volume, and stale taste. That means no taste. So important raw materials during the bread manufacturing is the emulsifier. Question can be framed. Why emulsifier agents are added? What is the role of emulsifier agent? Hello.
The state test মানে
হ্যাঁ স্টেল টেস্ট মানে হচ্ছে ব্যাড টেস্ট স্টেল মানে কোনো টেস্টই নেই emulsifier agent done clear number 5 raw materials important biological preservative biological preservatives that is the another scenario it will distinct from the other manufacturing process because other manufacturing process does not need any preservative process but here it is need because the bread is perishable so we had to be increase the shelf life of this product so that is why preservatives should add and biological preservatives mainly antifungal agents like potassium acetate, sodium diacetate, etc. added. Sodium acetate, sodium diacetate, potassium acetate, they are all antifungal agents. Control the fungal activity. And most prominent microbes that grow inside the bread is the fungus and mold. These two agents are highly spoilage creator inside the bread. Yes or no? You can also visualize inside the bread in home. There are some molds are grown over the spoiled bread. So that is why antifungal agents are present or added. Actually, it necessary for increase the shelf life. Raw materials clear. Raw materials clear. Now it's time for culture addition. After raw materials, the next is the culture. Obviously, wheat grain do not contain yeast. The good property of yeast that we need for the bread making does not provide it. So indigenous microbes option is not present here. We have to be added starter culture. So culture. After raw material, the next part is the culture addition. Yeast culture is added and the scientific name is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. also called Baker's yeast. This Baker's is some desirable property for the bread manufacturing. Desirable property, must have property of the Baker's yeast or Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Desirable property of Baker's yeast. Clearly, the first function that we need for the from the yeast, it is the concentration of the carbon dioxide that is produced. Yes or no? The ultimate bread manufacturing step needs the leavening reaction. Bread manufacturing steps ultimately need leavening reaction, and the leavening reaction means carbon dioxide generation. So the Baker's yeast should must contain the property of high gassing power. That means high production of CO2. Capacity to produce high production of CO2. So desirable property of Baker's yeast number one is high gassing power. Number two, flavor development. Ethanol tolerant. Important property. Number three, ethanol tolerant. Because during the alcohol fermentation, there is another byproduct, ethanol. And ethanol concentration when reach 8 to 10%, each cell cannot tolerate. So the property should there in the Baker's yeast ethanol tolerant up to level of more than 10%. That is desirable. Ethanol also evaporate during the baking time, but during the fermentation time, the ethanol level goes spike into more than 10%. And at that time, if the yeast is died, then total reaction, leavening reaction become gone. So third property is the ethanol tolerant property. Baker's yeast must contain. Number four, should stable during the fermentation process or storage process. So what are the desirable properties of the Baker's yeast? These are 4 points. High gassing power, that is the must have property, because after all the bread is produced after leavening reaction, means carbon dioxide production. So the generation of carbon dioxide concentration should high inside the Baker's yeast. Second, obviously flavor development. Do not create any bad flavor. Optimal good flavor, good flavor. Third is the ethanol tolerant, important point, and the stable should stable. The yeast cell should be stable during the whole fermentation process. Culture done. Next, manufacturing process. Raw materials done, culture done. Steps in bread making. Steps in bread making. First of all ingredients, all raw materials are assembled and mixed. So after the addition of water, kneading is done. Kneading মানে কি আটা মাখা যেটাকে বলে না মাখা, so knead করতে হবে. So that time knead the gluten develops, and that gluten is important for flexibility and proper texture. So kneading is important. Next, allow to ferment. Allow to ferment, temperature 30 to 32 degrees centigrade. Temperature 30 to 32 degrees centigrade for 12 to 14 hours. Almost overnight. Overnight fermentation done. After the fermentation, obviously the rising occurred, leavening occurred, and the volume is increased. So the fermented dough is then portioned and shaped, round shape, rectangular shape, any kind of shape given. After the shaped or portion, the dough is kept remain for some time, allowed to rest. And rise finally, final rising here at that time. Final rising occur at that time. And this step is called proofing step. This step is called proofing. Proofing means allow the dough after the portioning and shape, the fermented dough is kept for some time for the final rising, because that 12 to 14 hour maximum rising leavening reaction is done. The final rising occur at that shaped portion. After that baked, baking at 200 degrees centigrade temperature for 6 to 8 minutes, followed by cooling and packaging. Clear bread manufacturing steps, raw materials and manufacturing process steps. Online
Yes, sir.
students,
Clear.
clear? Okay. The fermentation here occurred, the reaction is allowed to ferment. What type of fermentation occurred here? Alcoholic fermentation. And during alcoholic fermentation, the glucose convert into pyruvate, and pyruvate convert ethanol and carbon dioxide. And that is important, this carbon dioxide. And the ethanol that is produced after the baking at that temperature, 200 degrees centigrade temperature, ethanol is evaporated. Evaporated. So no trace amount of ethanol present inside the bread. So otherwise you can say that the bread contain the alcohol. No, during the baking process, baking time, the all alcohols are evaporated from the bread. Only carbon dioxide present, trapped and form that kind of spongy structure. Clear? So bread contain alcohol or not? Bread contain alcohol? No. Because during baking time, all the alcohol that is produced during the fermentation, gone, evaporated. But some modifications can be manufactured from the bread and called sourdough formation. And from the sourdough, sour bread is formed. What is sour bread? The taste of the bread is some tangy, uh, acidic. That's why it's called sour bread.
Special type of risk.
Special type, modified bread. Sourdough. Make the form sourdough. How does it produce? Simple. All the materials same, raw materials same. Just culturing is different. Starter culture is different. Here we use for the sourdough making. Here we use combination of bacteria and yeast. The bacteria is the clearly lactic acid bacteria and yeast. So yeast give the ripening property, bread-like structure property, and bacteria produce lactic acid. Yes or no? Inside the bread and make the bread sour. Make the bread sour taste. So some modification also some company can be produced, and that time the sourdough making we need to addition of lactic acid bacteria with the yeast. But normal bread, as usual, normal table bread গুলো আসে, that is contain only carbon dioxide, no alcohol. Bread manufacturing step clear. So three popular grain-based fermented breakfast option. কি ছিল? What are these? Idli, dosa, previously discussed. Bread, third option, already manufacturing steps given. And fourth and fifth type, grain-based fermentation. Products are grain-based fermented product number 4 and 5. Fourth product, soy sauce, and fifth one is tempeh. So today we discuss tempeh, not the soy sauce. Soy sauce is relatively complex process and it takes time. Separate class given for the soy sauce. And now today we discuss about the tempeh manufacturing scale. So next grain-based manufacturing process is tempeh.
So what is temp?
Tempeh,
Uh,
আসছি। Fermented product, soya-based fermented product. Tempeh is mold fermented, not the bacteria or yeast. It is mold fermented soybean product.
like a tofu.
Tofu is soft, but tempeh is crunchy, solid. কাছাকাছি সেম, টেক্সচার সেম, বাট টোফু সফট হয়, দ্যাট মিন্স পনিরের মতো টেক্সচার হয়, বাট tempeh is slightly solid and crunch. So mold fermented soybean product where soybean bind to form cake shell, bind to form cake. That means all beans are combinedly clumped together to make the solid structure. Here is completely bean grain is utilized. Clear? Soybean, not soya chunk. Soya chunk is the powder of the soybean, and that make the that shape, chunk shape. It is soybean, original bean. Tempeh is originated Indonesia. Indonesian food. It is tempeh. Raw materials. Simple raw materials. Just use soybean. Culture. Starter culture. Here we previously told it is a mold fermented. That means mold is given and the mold name is Rhizopas oligosporus. Rhizopas oligosporus. Manufacturing step of tempeh. Production steps. First soybean collected, cleaned, sorted and dried. Then wash the bean, wash and boil for 30 minutes. Why boiling is needed here? To dehull the upper surface. Otherwise, soybean is very hard.
Yes.
So wash and boil for 30 minutes, then drain the water and dehull and rinse. So for dehulling, this boiling is important. This boiling is important. Dehulling means remove the
স্যার
upper
ডিহাল
layer.
মানেটা কি?
Outer layer remove করা, খোসা ছাড়ানো যেটাকে বলে বাংলা। Because soybean is very hard, so ওটাকে ছাড়ানো খুব difficult. Without boiling এটা ছাড়বে না। So dehulling means remove the skin or outer layer. Clear? Next, further wash and soak for 16 to 24 hour means 1 day at normal room temperature 22 to 26 degrees centigrade. And this is the important step before adding culture, starter culture. This soaking after dehulling, soaking is important. Why? Because during this time, the indigenous microbes work inside the soybean. Indigenous microbes work at that time, not the starter culture organism.
India is started as a lab.
Lage. Because indigenous organisms provide the good property for the starter culture to grow. These indigenous microbes or organisms initial ferment the soybean, and the indigenous microbes present inside the soybeans are some of the examples: lactobacillus, casei, staphylococcus, streptococcus, some yeast also present, candida, pichia, pichia sp yeast, candida yeast, Saccharomyces also may be present. So these indigenous microbes that time during the soaking time and room temperature 24 hours incubation period, they start to initial ferment the soybean. And this produced product, initial fermented product, induce the growth of mold, because that time the pH becomes slightly lower, and that lower pH is favorable for mold growth, and mold start to grow. Initially, mold grow inside the soybean needs some time for activation. But if the indigenous microbes initially ferment, the soybean is perfectly balanced for the growth of starter culture. That is why this step is important. Wash step and soaking step for 1 day at normal temperature. After that, it is second time boiling for 30 to 60 minutes. And this boiling is for killing all spoilage causing organism. Spoilage causing and other disease causing organisms are killed by that temperature. So first fermented products is all right produced, and now it's time to boil and kill those spoilage organisms. In that time, after boiling, cooling, rhizopus is added, inoculate with Rhizopus oligosporus spore, not the direct vegetative organism, add as a spore, and these spores are germinate inside the soil later. After addition of spore, it will be packed and incubate for optimal temperature 25 to 30, which is important for mold growth. This incubator temperature is for mold growth and ferment. And next, it is used readily available in store or stored at normal freeze temperature after the incubation. And the product is formed is cake-like. The texture flavor of the
Right.
tempeh. Texture flavor is tempeh texture. Chunky texture means cake-like. Nutty flavor, mushroom flavor. Slightly bitter, meat-like flavor, meaty flavor. It gives benefit. Benefit of tempeh. It contains high reach of protein. It contains high reach or high source of protein. This tempeh. Good source of protein. Almost 18 gram per 100 gram of tempeh. So good quantity. 18 gram per 100 gram of tempeh. So useful for muscle building.
Kind of costly or
খুব কস্টলি নয় বিকজ সয়াবিন তো সয়াবিন প্রোডাক্ট অত কস্টলি হবে না আমরা খেতে পারবো কিনা আমি জানি না
আমাদের taste bud
হ্যাঁ ম্যাচ করবে না ইউজফুল ফর মাসেল বিল্ডিং ইট কন্টেন্স গুড রিচ অফ ফাইবার অলসো good source of fiber and good source of fiber actually help to maintain our heart structure heart health good to support the heart health and uh, digestive system also support good digestion or gut health. Beneficial role, the first important beneficial role that one protein source, good source of protein. These are actually coming from the fiber, excess fiber, good amount of fiber needs for heart health, good digestion support. That's the optional. The main benefit of the tempeh is source of protein because many of the food products, in case of India also, protein deficit. Indian people are really protein deficit. Mainly, they consume carbohydrate more and protein less. That's the main problem. And clearly, ICMR guidelines said that you should consume protein per gram of body weight. That means if your body weight is 60 kg, 60 gram of protein must need in a total in a day diet. But every day we lack or deficit the protein every day in the nutrition because our total staple foods all are rich in carbohydrate, less in protein. That's why the tempeh, the beneficial effect is good source of protein. Clear? So two products here we manufactured in this class. One is bread manufacturing process, other is tempeh manufacturing process. So next day we talk about soya sauce making process as well as some defects according to some defects in grain-based products like bread defects, soya sauce defects, etc. And by that way, Unit 3 is also completed. Any
So
question?
is there test in next class?
Next or next? That means ninth, I think. Next class is off because of Diwali. Diwali, Deepavali, Bhaifota, etc. Also happening at that time, Saturday, Sunday, Friday. So next class is off, sec paper class. After that, that means ninth, I think. So next class test, unit 2 test.